Hi, I'm here with Emily, Byte-Size Vegan. So,
Hello.
hello. Hi, Emily. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. So, Emily, you've been doing Byte-Size Vegan for some time now, and it's basically you take educational content and scientific kind of content and you put it to non-vegans to help explain kind of everything about veganism, right? And yeah, can you tell us a little bit about like where this came from and where you got the idea to start this?
Yeah. So, I really wanted to find a way to not only, I guess, when I was really starting it, I was thinking about how overwhelming it is when you are trying to look for vegan information and there's so much stuff online and you can get a lot of misinformation, disinformation, a lot of confusing stuff. And then it's kind of a multi-part thing. The other thing I saw was that people were getting their information primarily from social media sources and things, which is not always the best source of information. And so I kind of wanted to bridge the gap between solid research and accessibility, because in reality that's not anyone's fault, because the amount of time it takes to actually research things and find primary sources, and then there's a time barrier. There's also the fact that a lot of really robust sources like journals and stuff can be paywalled. There can also be educational barriers. So I wanted to kind of try to bring solid information to an accessible space of social media and put those together, and then hopefully make it entertaining as well. It's a bit of a challenge too, because you don't want to over distill things down too much. So it's always been a balancing act.
No, it's really interesting. I know I primarily watch YouTube for content like that. My favorite channel is like Dr. Justin Sledge's Esoterica, and he does the same things but with kind of history. And it's great because he's, you can peer review things and it's all checked and it's sourced. And it's like you say, in a world of misinformation, people keep asking you to cite your source, but do they read it? Probably not. Whereas when you're actually putting the groundwork in and doing that, it's offering something of value that we're not really seeing too much of, I think, with social media.
Yeah.
Dare I say that?
Yeah.
So, it's amazing that you're doing that. What's the kind of reactions that you've had from people?
Well, over the years, in the early days, it was really remarkable to me. I kind of just started this not really knowing where it was going to go, and also having absolutely no idea what I was doing, which I still have no idea. And it was kind of remarkable to me that I started getting messages from people around the world about just the videos making a difference for them. I've had people use them in university classrooms. I have people present them in schools and, different environments. But then stories from people around the world who their entire family's gone vegan, or existing vegans. This is something I didn't expect originally, was existing vegans using the videos and the articles as teaching tools, where they're oh, I don't have to try to figure out how to say a thing. I can just send them this video. And because I've also always tried to keep in mind not just accessibility, but approachability. And so people have told me that, I feel like I can send people your videos and they actually will watch them.
Yeah.
I think I've had so many times of people sharing things with me that just kind of blow my mind, because I still feel like I'm just some weirdo who started recording in my closet and being I don't know. But I did a video ages ago on halal and kosher slaughter, and it was remarkable because I had someone contact me and they're my parents are very observant Muslim, and they actually sat down and they watched this video with me, and I've never been able to explain to them my issues with halal slaughter, and they said that they were able to watch it and they felt that their beliefs were respected, which was exactly what I was hoping to hit, is you can talk about, and it can be a hard line to walk, but we can talk about ethical issues without having to go against the foundational values behind what people's beliefs and everything.
Yeah, and that is that's a hard thing to be able to do, isn't it? But I guess if you're kind of approaching it from a purely scientific basis, or where they take the emotion out of it or anything like that, if it can kind of work a little bit.
Well, and also going from, that's kind of what I talked about today too, is going from the basis of their own values. So there's actually different hadith and things within Islam and a lot of religions and traditions, that there's a lot of things within the texts themselves that are very supportive of veganism or the ethics behind veganism. And so it's like meeting people where they're at too, where it's like, instead of being like, hey, your values are wrong, it's like, hey, let's look at where your values are in harmony with us.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a nice kind of approach to it.
Yeah.
How was your talk today? Because is this the first time you've ever performed at Vegan Camp Out, or
Yes.
this is the first time?
Yeah.
And how was it for you?
It was good. It was interesting. It was a little disorienting and sometimes. But yeah, it's been a really interesting time. I mean, I've been kind of like, I flew into the UK. I was a little disoriented, like barely slept, but then it was really nice. And I just, again, like hearing it always, like when I hear from people after I've spoken or something and they come up and give feedback, it always kind of blows my mind that people find stuff helpful. You know, it really means a lot. And I'm glad that the message that I was, doing today, like, seemed to actually reach and resonate with people, because it is a more challenging, or it can be a challenging concept for vegans, I think.
Yeah, so for anyone who wasn't at Vegan Camp Out today, what was the kind of subject of your talk?
Yeah, so I was talking primarily about using an empathy-based approach to outreach and activism, and just kind of in discussions about veganism with people who aren't vegan. And that can be kind of, I went into a lot of depth in it in the talk, but it can kind of seem unfair or counterintuitive or anything to think about empathizing with people who are still eating animals, or even empathizing with and validating their excuses. And that on its face sounds like, why would you ever do that? But it's more about, one thing that I also really focused on was the power of genuine curiosity. So a lot of times when we enter into conversations with people about veganism, we're kind of thinking so much about what we want to say, about our logic, our facts, our refutations, and all of those things. And in the talk, I vaguely talked about like research, but I actually have, for anyone who actually wants to like kind of hear what I said, I did make a resource page and a transcript for everyone here. So if they go to bytesizevegan.org/campout, they can read what I said, but also it has, this is what's so important, it has the sources.
Yes.
So like, even with me, if someone ever just says research indicates.
What research?
Yeah.
Where?
What research?
Yeah.
That's a big thing on social. Well, research says, okay, what research?
Yeah.
So anyways, sorry,
That's okay.
I'm getting sidetracked. Anyways, the research into kind of talking to people about polarizing topics shows that if people are kind of given a space to express themselves about divisive and polarizing issues, and then if they're listened to and they're given the validation of being listened to and that they're heard, and they're given that space to kind of express themselves, it brings down the charge of things, and it brings down their defenses. So an example I talked about with the power, what I mean by curiosity, it's a very powerful thing to default to. So if someone is talking to you about like how much they love hunting, or like, I could never give up meat, or whatever it is, and there's that temptation to come back about like, well, do you know that hunting this, does this? Yeah. Or like, oh, but there's so many vegan, and that kind of is bringing this energy of like, yeah, but, and then it's this, acrimonious thing.
Yeah.
But if you instead say, oh, okay, I'm curious, like, what is it about hunting that you love so much? And who knows what they'll come back with? Like, well, it's time with my, maybe they have kid, it's time with my kid, my son, I get to like show him these things, like we get to be out in nature, blah, blah. Or like, what is it, I'm curious, like, what is it about eating meat that makes you feel like it's not something you could ever give up? And if it's like, oh, well, it's about, I get to be with my family during events, or like, I love the taste or whatever. And so whatever they come back with, well, first of all, asking someone a question puts them out of defensiveness and into self-reflection. And whenever any of us are actually shown genuine curiosity for our experiences, it does bring down your defenses. It's like, oh, someone wants to hear what I have to say. And it's not this like combative thing. So it already puts their defenses down. And then it also allows them to kind of self-reflect in a way that you're usually not going to get in like if you're ever doing, activism where it's a combative thing, people aren't self-reflecting.
No.
They're defending. And curiosity does kind of this magic thing that like opens this space where they can self-reflect. And there's actually studies that have shown that like when people are given that space, and there was one study done by the nonprofit Pax Fauna, and it showed that when people were given the space about veganism, the study participants actually ended up debunking their own objections. So the things that they had used earlier to say why they weren't going to be vegan, when they were given that space and they started to self-reflect, they're like, well, but that actually doesn't really make sense because blah, blah, blah. And so it opens that ability, but it also allows us as advocates to not only do we get to like, we don't have to be like ready with like this, and this. Instead, you listen to what the person says. And so if you're talking to someone about hunting and they're talking about it's time with my son, it's time in nature, you can kind of have this discussion, be like, explore other ways that you can do that.
Or that I can relate to that aspect of it, and that makes sense.
Absolutely. And that's what I mean by like empathizing with their values, because the underlying value, when you drill down into it, the reason that people are eating and using animals is very rarely anything around, well, I just love abusing animals. That's like, there's those people out there.
Yeah, that's terrifying though.
For most people, and this is hard to understand or hard to hear sometimes, is like the reason people keep exploiting animals is due to like values that we share with them, you know, like time with family, getting to do holiday stuff or whatever it is, it can be that, or like sense of belonging, not wanting to be socially rejected, stuff like that. And so we can share in that with them and then find other ways to meet. And it's also like not only values, but human needs, like the needs for social acceptance, the need to not be the weirdo on the outside. And we can identify with those, and then we can work together collaboratively to find other ways to meet those needs that don't involve exploiting animals.
It makes so much sense. It's like, do people really enjoy eating a turkey at Christmas, or is it just that the turkeys, that whole, that's the kind of image of a whole feeling of family, like you say, and spending time and, enjoying Christmas or whatever it might be. And it's suddenly when they realize, okay, then maybe that's not needed. This can still be really nice.
That's the thing.
Yeah, and then it's completely changed.
And the more that you can identify with people, be like, I get that. And you can say like, I was the same way, or I feel the same way, and if you want to share your own story at that point, be like, hey, what I found was, X, Y, or Z, but always going with more curiosity, and really allowing that person to express themselves. Because we really need more primary research in the vegan field. But a lot of the studies that I looked into for this talk, but also a 3-part series I did, there's a lot of studies in like, they look into like polarizing political things, and they've found that even in these issues that like, trans rights are things that are like really, really polarized people. And they found that doing this kind of empathy-based approach, people would actually also talk themselves out of their stance, by just being given enough space to do so. And it's not like a magic bullet that's always going to work, but it's really, it can be really effective.
Facilitates real conversation rather.
It also helps, like, I think it's really important too that it helps like us as activists get to also de-escalate, because like it can be really wear on you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's talk about your vegan journey. When did that begin, and what was the kind of catalyst for you to go vegan?
I always feel like I have like the worst story, because I like don't have like a non-story. I don't have like a date. Because like my mom says that when I was about 4, which I think is when she started trying to feed me animals, that anything I could tell came from an animal, I wouldn't eat. And so she's like, well, I had to disguise it was the only way to get you to eat. And I'm like, thanks so much.
Parent strategy.
And so, I think it was with me from the start, which I honestly, I think arguably it's with all of us from the start. Like if you give a child, what's that whole thing that they say? If you put a chicken and an apple in front of a baby, they'll maybe go for the apple. They're going to try to play with the chicken. Yeah. It's kind of we have to be taught these things, but I didn't, it's not that I stayed vegan. Like I was fed animal products, and I don't know at what point. I think I definitely didn't eat like flesh probably very long at all, and then later made the connection with milk and dairy and eggs and things like that. But I don't have a hard and fast date.
That's okay. That's hard as a scientist, I'm guessing. So like for you, your educational background and things like this, what kind of led you to doing what you do now, kind of with these topics and breaking it down?
Well, I kind of was all over the place with what I wanted to do with my life. I still feel like I am. I wanted to go into med school, into forensic pathology is actually what I was going to do. But I'm also very into art and writing. And so I figured once I go to med school, that's going to be my life for 10 to 12 years. So I went and first got my master's, and then my master's in fine arts and art. And then I was going to go into med school. And so as I was transitioning into med school and had started that track, I had already decided that I wanted to try to do this educational thing where essentially, again, I was wanting to create resources for others, like the things that I needed the most, which was like trying to simplify complexities. And so I kind of just started doing it. I saw it as an outcropping of my art practice at the beginning. And then it just started to grow to such a degree that then I stopped med school, which who knows, and then just started doing this full time. So
that's amazing. That must have been quite a leap as well to go.
It really
was. I mean, like my youngest cousin, she's in the process of doing that in the UK at the moment.
Yeah.
I think she's in her 4th or 5th year. So it's like, if to jump from doing something where you're really committed, it's not like a 3-year English degree. This is very different. Yeah. So to make
I was only in the first year, so I wasn't deep into it, but I grew up in a medical household, and so I've always been really fascinated by it. But this just kind of took off, and it was something I was really passionate about. So
when you kind of explain that to your parents, look, I'm going to make videos for YouTube instead, were they like, what?
No, I mean, I think, I don't know. I think there's still kind of like not quite an understanding, but I don't know. My mom is very supportive. And actually, no one in my family is vegan, but my mom more and more has reduced animal food consumption. And actually, it's so funny. When she visits me, she eats vegan. And she's always like, I feel so much better. And I'm like, what? You could keep doing it. It's an option. Keep doing it.
Keep doing the thing you like.
The bless.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, so what have you kind of got coming up next over the next sort of 12 months? What are you working on? And
oh man, well, I'm kind of been in like for a while. So I did the last series that I did with Byte-Size Vegan was on this whole psychological social interaction thing, and something that I talked about. I am coming back to your question.
Oh, it's okay.
My brain does this cycle.
No, it's fine.
Something that I had wanted to talk about, the thing I wanted to make this speech about ideally was I wanted to be able to share my experience with burnout because I had pretty severe burnout that I might never fully recover from, like from my activism. And part of that is just by the intensity with which I do everything. So for about 4.5 years, I just wasn't sleeping, and I was just cranking videos out. And then also is the fact that I'm neurodivergent, and I didn't know that, and I didn't know how to care for my brain and my neurology and everything. And so I was kind of hoping that I would have the words to share that with people by the time I came to this event, and as a kind of a cautionary tale to help other people, because activist burnout is a huge issue with any movement, but I just still don't quite have the words for it. Every time I try to explain it or put it into words, it just doesn't come out right. And so in the talk, I actually said that we're like, hey, this is what I really wanted to share with you. And I did say towards the end that, even though I don't have the words for it, I wanted to make sure that anyone, I was talking directly to the audience here, saying that if you're in that place, if you are exhausted, if you feel if you're burnt out, if you're forcing yourself through things, and if you feel that resting is betraying the animals, that I just wanted people to hear that they're enough, and that you are allowed joy and happiness, and to do not destroy yourself for the cause. It can be really hard to care for ourselves, because it's easy to also say, well, nothing that I'm going to go through is anything like what the animals are going through. And that's absolutely true. At the same time, what use are we if we're burnt out?
Exactly.
So on that front, that was my big, long story to say that I have been for a while now, since I put out those last videos, I've kind of taken a step back again from the social media spaces. I have a really hard time, it seems. I mean, for the last decade plus, I keep trying to find a way to keep doing what I was doing and do it in a way that's not going to kill me.
Yeah.
And I think I'm finally stubbornly having to accept that I might not be able to. The way that I'm built, the way that I'm wired, I just keep doing it, and it's really hurting me to a point that's extremely unsafe. And so I've been trying to find a safe way to maybe re-engage with that, because especially when I hear how much a difference it's made for people. So what I have been doing, and what I'm going to continue doing, and I might still shift back into content production if I can, because I love it, some aspects of it.
Yeah.
But I've actually been working one-on-one and in group settings with other neurodivergent vegans and activists and people wanting to go vegan, because something that there's not a lot of great resources out there for people who are neurodivergent and wanting to go vegan, and having very specific sensory issues and everything with that, because it's not something that we really talk about a lot. But, you know, a lot of people who are autistic or ADHD or whatever they have, there's like issues with going vegan that isn't really commonly discussed. And then additionally, for activists, there can be a lot of challenges with navigating like the social hotbed of, you know, the movement and everything, where there's just a lot of unwritten rules. There's a lot of confusing things. There's a lot of drama that just doesn't make any sense. You know, and I've always been one who, like, none of that makes any sense to me. Like, I've had a lot of times, like,
but we're fighting for the larger cause, right? And it should be, that should be the end thing.
I did talk about in my talk too, is like the damage of infighting. That is just, it is so profoundly
And that's
damaging.
what people who look at chat rooms, who look at vegan forums, who might be a bit curious about it, might just go, hell no.
And that's the thing.
And that's it. And it's like, okay, long-term goal here is the wide plan, right? The big plan is to eliminate the factory farming, is to do this. And surely the more people who can get on board with that, that's how we're going to do it. And if these people are looking, yes, okay, some of them might want to troll us, but some of them are just curious. And it's like, that's how the ripple effect works.
Right. And like, I feel like infighting is maybe perhaps the biggest threat to any social justice movement, because it destroys movements from within. Like, we already are a minority. We're already limited in our resources, in anything. And then when we're ripping each other apart, it's so destructive. And so I have been working and plan to continue to work with neurodivergent individuals, but then I'm also doing some, like, I'm helping out like smaller organizations or activists who might need any basics, because I've learned a lot of skills in doing Byte-Size Vegan by myself. You know, I've figured out, I didn't know any of this stuff, you know, and now I can like write in multiple computer languages, you know, and then I know all too much about email deliverability and newsletters and all of the, you know, so it's like I'm connecting this, but I haven't put anything out official about any of this. I just kind of, from my video, I had a video how autism connects me with animals, and I started to have neurodivergent people reach out to me. And so I kind of started on this path without really thinking this could be a direction for me to go in. But that's kind of what I've been focusing on. But then still continuing to keep up, you know, the Byte-Size Vegan website, and like I'll put written resources and everything on that. And then obviously, like, you know, speaking when I'm invited. So it's been a difficult transition for me, because number one, I always put so much pressure on myself. And then externally, when like your identity or like your form of activity is social media based, and then you're not pumping stuff out left, right, and center, then I get a lot of like, has she died? Is she alive? You know, or it can be, I talked a lot in my speech about issues with social media. And I think one of them is that we have this conception that putting stuff out on platforms is productivity. When it's really, honestly, and especially if you're one person, if I'm putting stuff out left, right, and center on social media platforms, I am getting nothing done. That's what I'm doing. And so now that I've been doing this kind of work with neurodivergent people and with helping smaller organizations and activists, I'm not putting stuff out all the time or at all. And I have been meaning since I started doing this, to make some kind of announcement video. But again, due to like the nature of my burnout and all of that, I haven't been able to get the words out of my face right to put that announcement out there. But it is interesting, because I think we as a society need to get better at understanding that and being someone who was so deep in social media based activism, it does kind of start to warp your sense of reality. And this kind of sense of like, if you're not, I think it's kind of a thing of like Pixar, it didn't happen. Like, if you're not putting it on social media, what are you doing? But it's like, remarkably, one can do effective activism and outreach and not put it on social media. It's possible, you know. And actually, I feel like I've been far more productive and everything. But I would like to explain that to people. But it has been really rewarding working with the neurodivergent community, and then still, like I said, being able to do speeches and things like this, because I do love the educational aspect of it, and I would love to find a way to re-engage with that on a more public level in a way that isn't profoundly self-destructive to me and my, you know, my functioning. And
you've got to kind of balance it with what you can take and what you can take going forwards, you know, and
that's been a really hard thing for me. And it's something that I want to, you know, continue to help encourage other people, that, and especially for neurodivergent people, we're really conditioned to kind of just force our way through life because you kind of have to make it through, and it's something that's called like masking and passing and things like that, and it comes at a huge cost. And so when your default is to kind of always be uncomfortable and always be in pain and things like that, it can be harder to realize this isn't
I don't need
good.
to do this. Yeah. I
And it
can
can
feel
be much harder in the face of animal activism because, again, looking at what the animals are going through, I use it all the time against myself where it's like, what right do I have to complain?
Yeah.
But again, what use am I if I'm falling apart on the floor? I mean, I wish, again, that I could kind of word it, but there were times that I'd go somewhere to do a speech and I would have to find an ER, get on fluids, like be on an IV overnight. And then like I couldn't find staff, like rip it out and be like, I gotta go give a speech, everybody. And then like go and give a speech. And then I'd go collapse into a human puddle.
Yeah.
You know, but it was like, and I wish I'd kind of at that point been like, this might be a problem.
Yeah. This isn't good.
Maybe I should
but
think about this.
That's very true. But that's one of your learning lessons, right? That's one of the things you kind of go, okay, that can't continue because it can't.
But I still did it for years.
Yeah, so it's true.
And again, it's hard because like I don't regret it because it makes a difference. But it's just like trying to be more mindful of like we're animals too. Yeah. And we have to also
you have to listen to your body. You've got to listen to what feels right. And when you're tired and exhausted and ripping out UVs, you got to say, okay, this is too much.
Yeah, because like it's important for us to be in the long haul for the animals because this is a marathon. Yeah, you know.
This is not going to end anytime soon.
No, and that's the thing. It was like it'd be, you know, and I have that. I think so many of us have that passion where we just want to like fight and fight and fight, and that is important. It's important for us to throw ourselves into it. And I mean that's a beautiful thing, but to also like care for ourselves. Like a line that I said in the speech today was that like self-care is a radical act in the face of oppression. Yeah. You know, to remember that because it can feel, at least to me, I'm really bad at it. So it can feel like I'm like, oh, I'm just, you know, like doing nothing, you know, or I'm like doing something. It was really hard for me to do something that I enjoy. People used to ask me like, what do you do for fun? I'd be like, excuse me?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Like, I don't have fun. I don't enjoy anything. I work. That's what I do. Like for the years with Byte-Size Vegans, like I'd go, my sister's in labor. I'm in the hospital room making a video, you know, like I'm hospitalized. Don't worry. Got my computer, going to upload that video, you know? So like the idea of like, what do you do for fun was like, I don't understand the question, you know? And I've been, you know, now over the last year or so finding things that I enjoy. And then I find that I actually have so much more bandwidth to work with people, to do outreach, to do activism, and not be like a shell of a human. Yep. I feel like I was just animated by like coffee and Pedialyte for years.
It's you hear it a lot you hear it a lot with activists. Yeah. Like you say, it is really common for activists and burnout. It's talked about quite a lot. Well, over in the UK it is. And it's, you know, people aren't machines, you know. We're not meant to just keep consuming and to it's crazy.
Yeah. I think it's in all, I think, different activism and social movements and everything, because it is that thing where everyone is so passionate and dedicated for the cause, but there's this expectation of like sacrifice yourself for it. And I mean, there's just such turnover and everything because people they burn out, you know,
So you're in this for the long haul though?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just finding those, an aspect of like, my autism, because every autistic person is different, but it's like I get locked into certain patterns and it takes me a really long time to like kind of
rewire them
understand like, and so for me trying to figure out what's a different way I can go about this, because I beat my head against a wall for so long, but I feel like it's kind of finally getting there. So like the empathy that we extend to the animals and, you know, to all these other living beings, like just trying to also do that for ourselves. But
it's a good lesson and a reminder. It really is. And
it's hard.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for chatting to me today. It was really lovely it was great to talk to you, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, thanks.